The rain started about an hour before I caught him. I remember that because I'd been standing in the kitchen of our apartment in the Gangnam district of Seoul, watching it come down sideways against the window, stirring a pot of galbi jjim that I had been working on since 7 in the morning. Short ribs, Korean radish, dried jujubes, soy, garlic. My mama back in Memphis used to say you can't rush love and you can't rush slow food. And that night I was making both for a man who had already decided to give neither one back to me. His name was Choi Daehyun. He was 28 years old. He ran the second largest private organization in Seoul. He had silver at his temples that had no business being there at his age, and the kind of jaw that made waitresses forget how to write down an order. The first time I met him, I was at a rooftop bar in Itaewon with 2 girls from my language program. He sent me a single white orchid and a note that said, in handwriting I would later learn was not his, "You're the most beautiful thing in this room, and the room knows it." I should have known then. A man who hires somebody else to write his first impressions is a man who will hire somebody else to break your heart. I grew up in South Memphis on a block where everybody knew everybody's grandmama, and my mama made me kiss every elder on the porch from the time I could walk. I came to Seoul on a fellowship 2 years ago to study East Asian textile arts. I stayed because I fell in love. I stayed because I thought I was building something real. I was wrong about the building. I was right about the love. That was the problem. For 2 years, I cooked his mother's recipes. I learned to bow at the correct angle for each generation of his family. I memorized which of his uncles took his soju cold and which one took it warm. I called his grandmother Halmaoni with the right tone, the right softness, the right respect, and she still couldn't bring herself to look me full in the face. Daehyun told me she would come around. He told me a lot of things. The night I caught him, I was supposed to be making dinner for the 2 of us. Our 2-year anniversary. He had said, very specifically, that he wanted me to cook. That he wanted to come home and eat something his woman made with her own hands. He said my woman and I held that phrase like a folded letter for a whole week. He didn't come home. He didn't call. At 9:30, I covered the pot. At 10, I sat down at the table I had set for 2, and I ate by myself with the window open so I could hear the rain. At 10:47, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a number I didn't recognize. The text said, "Sister, you deserve to know. The Capella Hotel. Room 1408. Right now." There was a photo attached. I looked at it. I looked at the half-eaten plate of short ribs in front of me. I looked at the photo again. And I made a decision in that kitchen quiet, clear, no tears that I was going to put on my coat and go see this thing with my own eyes. Because my mama raised me on one rule above every other rule. Baby, don't ever take somebody else's word for what your own life is doing. Go look. So I went and I looked. The Capella Hotel sits on a hill on the north side of the river. White marble, gold trim. The kind of place where the doorman knows your name before he sees your face. I had been there exactly 1 time, 18 months earlier, for a charity event Daehyun had taken me to as his date. He hadn't introduced me to a single person that night. I should have known then, too. I got out of the cab in the rain with no umbrella and walked through the lobby in a coat that was already soaked through. The concierge at the desk looked up. He looked at my face. Then he looked away too fast, the kind of away that tells you a person already knows. Room 1408. The elevator climbed 14 floors in silence. I watched the numbers go up, and I felt something in my chest that wasn't anger yet, wasn't grief yet, wasn't even surprise. It was just knowing. A still, heavy knowing, like a room before a storm. The door at 1408 was cracked open about 2 inches. I could hear them before I saw them. Her laugh sharp, performative, the kind of laugh women use when they're laughing for someone else's benefit. His voice, low and warm, the voice he used to use on me when he wanted something. And underneath both of them, music. Old jazz. The kind Daehyun knew I loved. The kind he claimed he didn't understand. I pushed the door. The suite opened into a wide living room with a wall of windows looking out over the city. Champagne on the table. 2 glasses. His jacket on the back of the couch. And on the couch, Daehyun, in a white shirt half unbuttoned, with a Korean woman I had never seen before draped across his lap like a stole. She saw me first. She didn't move. She just smiled, slow and lazy, and tilted her head against his shoulder like she was settling in for a long show. Daehyun looked up. For 1/2 second, he froze. And then, and this is the part I will remember for the rest of my life, the part that taught me everything I needed to know about who I had been loving, he recovered. His face went smooth. He took a sip of his champagne. He set the glass down on the table, and he looked at me the way a man looks at an inconvenient delivery. "Imani," he said, "you should go home." "This is your apartment," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Whose home should I go to? Don't make a scene. I haven't made anything yet." The woman on the couch laughed that same sharp laugh and stretched her arm across his chest like she was claiming territory in front of me. She was beautiful. I'll say that. The kind of beautiful that costs money and time and a willingness to be exactly what someone tells you to be. Her name, I would learn later that night, was Sun Jaehyun. She was 24. She ran what she called a modeling agency, which, it turned out, ran several other things underneath the modeling. Daehyun stood up. He walked toward me slowly, the way you walk toward an animal you don't want to spook, and he put his hand on my elbow and tried to turn me back toward the door. I did not move. "Imani!" 2 years, I said. "I cooked your mother's recipes. I learned 3,000 Korean characters because you said your grandmother would respect me more if I did. I sat in that apartment tonight by myself for 3 hours waiting for you to come home and eat a dinner. I started cooking at 7 in the morning. And you're here, with her. You don't fit my world." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. That was the worst part. I tried. You tried. But you were never going to fit, Imani. You're too, he searched for the word, too American, too loud, too proud. My family was never going to accept you. I should have ended this a year ago. You should have. Don't make this ugly. You made it ugly, I said. I just walked into the room. He reached into his inside pocket and pulled out his wallet. He took out a stack of bills, $1. I didn't even look at the currency, and he pressed it into my hand. "For your flight home," he said. "Whatever you need. Buy yourself something nice. We had 2 good years. Don't ruin them by making a scene in front of." I dropped the money on the floor. It scattered across the marble between us, hundreds of dollars, like he had thrown a deck of cards. "Daehyun," I said his name slowly. The way my mama said names when she was about to teach you something. I came to Seoul on my own money. I have paid my own rent every single month I have been in this country, because I am not anybody's project. And the dinner I cooked tonight cost me $42 and 11 hours, and the part of my chest that used to believe you. You cannot pay me for that. You cannot afford what you took. Hyejin sat up on the couch. She looked at the money on the floor. Then she looked at me, head tilted, like she was seeing me for the first time. "Oppa," she said in Korean, soft and sweet. "Make her leave. She is embarrassing herself." I looked at her. I looked at him. And I said, in Korean, with the perfect formal tone Hamione had spent 8 months drilling into me, "Madam, may you receive what you have given." Her face changed. Daehyun's face changed. I turned around, and I walked out of that suite with my back straight, and I did not let myself cry until the elevator doors closed. In the parking garage on level B2, with the rain still coming down outside, and my coat still soaked through, and my heart breaking in a place I had not even known was load-bearing, I sat down on a concrete bench beside a column, and I let it come. I sat there for a long time. I let myself feel every bit of it. Because my mama also taught me this. "Baby, you can cry, but cry on the clock. When the clock's up, you stand up and you move." I gave myself 20 minutes. If you have ever given somebody everything you had and watched them hand it to somebody who did not earn it, drop your city in the comments right now. I want to know where you are. I want to see every zip code. We are not walking through this alone tonight. When my 20 minutes were up, I stood up. I wiped my face with the inside of my coat. I straightened my collar. I picked up my bag from the bench, and I started walking toward the parking garage exit, because I had no car and no umbrella and no plan beyond get out of this building before he comes looking for me to apologize in a way that doesn't mean anything. I walked up the ramp. I walked out onto the street. The rain was coming down in sheets, and at this hour, in this part of the city, in this weather, there were no cabs. I stood under the hotel awning for 30 seconds and watched the empty street and thought, Okay, walk. You will figure out the next thing while your feet are moving. You always do. I stepped out into the rain. I had not made it half a block when a black SUV slowed down beside me and the back window came down. A man's voice from inside. Miss Whitfield! I stopped. I turned. The man in the back seat was Korean, mid-30s, sharp-cut suit, no tie, the top 2 buttons of his shirt open like he had been pulled out of somewhere formal in a hurry. His hair was slightly damp. He had the kind of face that did not need to do much in a room to take up most of it, and he was looking at me with a quiet steadiness that I felt in the back of my neck before I felt anywhere else. I had never seen him before in my life, but I knew the name Sun Jaehyun. Everybody in Seoul did. Hando International controlled logistics software, autonomous freight systems, and private infrastructure across 16 countries. Financial magazines estimated his personal fortune above $4 billion. Business television called him a billionaire CEO. Men in Daehyun's world called him something else when the cameras were gone. Untouchable. Do I know you? I asked. Not yet, he said. But my grandmother knows you. And she has been very upset with me for the last 6 months for not finding you sooner. The rain kept falling. I stood there on the sidewalk in my soaked coat, looking at this stranger in a car that probably cost more than my mama's house, trying to figure out if I had finally cracked. Sir, I said carefully, I appreciate you stopping. But I don't know you, and tonight has been a lot. So I'm going to keep walking, if that's all right. Miss Whitfield. He didn't open the door. He didn't push. He just looked at me through the window, calm and patient, like he had all night. My name is Sun Jaehyun. I run a private group called Hando International. My grandmother is Sun Hyoja. 6 months ago at the Seoul Children's Hospital Charity Gala, she fell on the steps outside and dropped her purse. You picked her up. You walked her to a bench. You called for help. You sat with her until I got there. You never told her your name. You said his mouth moved into something that was almost a smile. You said, Auntie, somebody's grandbaby loves you, and you can't fall in front of God like this. I stared at him. I remembered the woman. I had not remembered her face. I had helped a lot of people in this city. A lot of Harmianas on a lot of sidewalks, because that is what you do when somebody's elder is on the ground in the rain. But I remembered saying that, because I remembered hearing my own mama's voice come out of my mouth, 2 countries away from her. That was your grandmother. Yes, she's all right. She is in extraordinary health. She has been driving me crazy for half a year, asking me to find the Memphis daughter who picked her up. Tonight, the Capella's security director recognized you leaving the lobby. Hando designed the hotel's security system, and the director had been shown the hospital gala photograph my grandmother kept asking us to circulate. He called my security chief. My chief called me. I came. I am parked here. He paused. I do not know what is happening in your life right now, and I am not going to ask. But I would like to take you somewhere dry. My grandmother has a guest house. There are 8 bedrooms in it. None of them are mine. She would be very angry with me if I let you stand in this rain for 1 more minute. The wind blew water sideways under the awning. I looked at him. I looked at the empty street. And I thought, Mama, what would you do? And I heard her, clear as if she was standing next to me. Baby, you do not get into cars with strange men. But you do get into cars with strange men's grandmamas. You take me to your grandmother, I said. Not your house. Your grandmother's house. And I sit with her, and if she does not vouch for you, I am calling a cab and going home. Miss Whitfield. He reached over and opened the door. That is exactly the plan. I got in carefully. The estate sat behind a stone wall in the hills above the city. By the time we drove through the gate, the rain had eased into a steady patter, and I was wrapped in a soft grey throw blanket that Sun Jaehyun had pulled from somewhere in the back seat without making a thing of it. He did not try to make conversation. He did not look at me. He just sat across from me with his phone face down on his knee and let me catch my breath. When the car pulled up to the main house, the front door was already open. A small woman in a pink cardigan and silk slippers came marching down the front steps under an umbrella that her housekeeper was struggling to hold over her, and she was already yelling before the door of the SUV was fully open. Are you a fool? Get out of the car. Get out, yes. Yes. Move. Move, move, move. Aigu, look at her. She is soaked. You let her sit like this. What is wrong with you, sweetheart? Sweetheart, come here. Come to Harmione. Come. She wrapped both arms around me before I had fully stood. She was barely 5 feet tall, smelled like ginger tea and Chanel No. 5, and held me like she had been waiting 6 months to do exactly this. "My Memphis daughter," she said into my shoulder, in heavily accented English. "My Memphis daughter. He found you. Finally, he found you." I told him. I said, "Jaehyun, you have all these computers, all these phones. You cannot find one beautiful black girl in Seoul? What is the point of all your money?" He had no answer. He had no answer because he was being stupid. Come inside. You will eat." "Why are you so thin? Have you been eating?" "Don't lie to me. I can tell. You have been crying. Who made you cry? Tell me his name. I will find him." "Harmony," Jaehyun started. "Quiet. I am talking to my daughter." She pulled me toward the house. Inside, the foyer was lit with warm yellow light, and the smell of food, sesame oil, garlic, something braising hit me so hard my stomach made a sound I had not heard it make in 12 hours. Harmony heard it. She stopped in the middle of the hallway and turned and pointed a finger up at me like I had personally insulted her. You see? You see? She is starving. She is starving in my house. Mrs. Park, MRS. Park. Bring everything. Bring the Jeon. Bring the soup. Bring the rice. Bring the small fishes. Bring the... She paused, searched for the English word, gave up, said something in Korean. Then she looked back at me. You like all the small dishes, yes? You eat bankchan? Yes, halmyeoni. Good. She speaks Korean, she announced loudly to nobody in particular. She has manners. She has culture. She bows correctly. I taught her to bow correctly 6 months ago, and look, she still remembers. Did you see, Jaehyun? Did you see how she bowed when she came in? You did not bow that well at your own father's funeral. Harmyeoni. Don't harmyeoni me. Sit. Sit down. Both of you. Sit. We sat. She fed us. For the next 2 hours, in a dining room with a long teak table and an enormous painted screen along one wall, Sun Jaehyun fed me more food than I had eaten in 3 days, and she talked the entire time. She talked about her late husband, a good man, but slow, always slow. I had to push him out of the bed every morning. She talked about her grandson, smart in the head, sometimes a fool in the heart. That is why he is not married. Are you married, sweetheart? No? Goody. She talked about Memphis, which she had visited once in 1987, and had remembered ever since because somebody had taken her to Beale Street, and she had eaten ribs that, in her words, changed her chemistry. She did not ask me what had happened tonight, not once. She just kept refilling my plate and refilling my tea, and at one point, when she saw me set my chopsticks down because I genuinely could not eat one more bite of Jeon, she leaned across the table and patted my hand with her small soft fingers, and she said, very quietly, in English, "Whoever he is, sweetheart, he was not the one. The wrong man cannot keep a good woman, no matter how tight he holds. You did not lose anything tonight. You just put down something that was never yours." I started to cry. I tried not to. I held it as long as I could. But she reached across the table, and she took both of my hands in both of hers, and she held on. "Cry," she said. "Cry it all out. In this house, we cry, and then we eat, and then we sleep, and tomorrow the sun comes up, and we are stronger than we were yesterday. This is the way. This has always been the way." Across the table, Sun Jaehyun was looking at his grandmother with an expression I did not know how to read. It looked almost like he was crying too. Comment right now if you have ever been held by a woman who was not your blood but felt like your blood. One of those aunties, grandmas, neighbors, church mothers who took you in on your hardest night. Drop in the comments. We owe those women everything. I slept in the guest house that night. It had 8 bedrooms, and I picked the smallest one because that's what my mama taught me when somebody opens their house to you. You take the smallest piece. I slept 12 hours straight in a bed that smelled like clean cotton and lavender, and when I woke up, there was a note slid under my door in beautiful handwriting that said, "Breakfast at 9. Harmony says do not be late. Jay." I went to breakfast. Harmony had laid out a spread that could have fed 16 people. She watched me eat and asked me questions about my mama, my daddy, my 2 older brothers, My church, my fellowship, my fabric studies, the rivers in Tennessee, the food in Tennessee, the music in Tennessee. She wrote some of it down in a small leather notebook. She nodded at the answers she approved of. When I told her my mama was a nurse who had worked the same hospital floor for 31 years, she put her pen down and she said, very seriously, "Your mother is a saint. I would like to call her. We will arrange this." I laughed for the first time in 24 hours. After breakfast, Sun Jaehyun came into the dining room in a dark sweater and slacks with his phone in his hand, and he sat down across from me, and he said, "I need to talk to you about something. May I?" "Yes." "Choi Daehyun came to my office this morning." I set my cup down. "He believes," Jaehyun continued, "that I have taken something that belongs to him. He believes you are an asset that he can negotiate to get back. He is wrong about both things, but I want you to know that he came. I told him to leave. I told him that you are not a thing that can be taken or returned, and that if he comes near you, near this house, or near my grandmother again, the conversation will be different." "What did he say?" He laughed at me. Jaehyun's mouth tightened, just slightly. "And he said something about how a tech CEO would not know how to handle a man like him. He is under the impression that Hando is only a technology company and that I am only a CEO. He does not understand that my family built its first fortune protecting trade routes his organization still depends on. He calls himself a Mafia boss. My grandfather was settling disputes between men like him before Daehyun learned to spell his own name. Jaehyun. Yes. I don't want a war." He looked at me for a moment. "I know. I don't want him hurt. I don't want her hurt. I don't want anybody hurt for me. That is not how I was raised, and it is not how I want to start whatever this is." I gestured around the room, around the house, around all of it, this kindness you and your grandmother have shown me. I will not start a new chapter by signing somebody else's destruction. That is not who I am. That is not who my mama raised. There was a long silence. Hermione, who had been pretending to read a newspaper at the head of the table, set her newspaper down. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "you do not have to do anything. You do not have to lift a finger. The world has its own way of settling accounts. You just keep being who you are. The rest of it," she waved her small hand, "the rest of it will happen by itself. It always does." Jaehyun nodded slowly. "I will not move against him," he said, "unless he moves against you. That is the only promise I will make. That is enough, Hermione." He turned to his grandmother. "Did you teach her this, or did her mother?" "Her mother." Hermione did not look up from her newspaper. Clearly her mother is a wise woman. "We will be visiting Memphis." I laughed again. I had not laughed twice in 24 hours in a very long time. "I'm going to tell you what happened to Choi Daehyun over the next 3 months, and I want you to listen carefully, because none of it was done by my hand." 3 weeks after that night, Hyejin walked into a private luncheon, believing she had finally earned a seat beside the women whose approval she had spent years chasing. The hostess looked at her place card, lifted it from the table, and handed it to an assistant without saying her name. Then Chairman Yoon entered from Busan. Her father did not raise his voice. He placed a folder in front of her containing the hidden accounts behind her modeling agency, the names of the men financing it, and photographs proving how she had used the Yoon name without permission. Hyejin looked around the table for one ally. Nobody met her eyes. Her father said, "You mistook attention for position." By sunset, her agency was frozen, her apartment access was revoked, and every invitation she had been collecting disappeared. She called Daehyun from the hotel lobby. His assistant answered and told her he was unavailable. That was the moment she understood she had not won a man, she had only helped reveal him. 6 weeks after that night, Daehyun entered a conference room expecting 12 long-time partners. 4 chairs were empty. A shipping executive from Singapore refused his handshake and slid an unsigned renewal across the table. "This is not about your private life," the man said. "It is about judgment." A leader who humiliates the person closest to him in public eventually misjudges the people across from him in private. One by one, the remaining partners closed their folders. Nobody argued. Nobody threatened him. They simply stood and left. The silence after the door closed was louder than any punishment I could have arranged. His grandmother passed 8 weeks later from a stroke in her sleep. That was not karma. Death is not a business consequence, and grief is not a bill anyone earns. I sent a white orchid to the funeral with no name attached. I prayed for her in my own room and asked God to receive a woman who had been taught to protect tradition before tenderness. Her death did not punish Daehyun. It only removed the last person whose approval he had spent his life chasing, leaving him alone with the choices he had made in her name. 3 months after that night, Hyojin appeared outside the textile center where I taught on Saturdays. No driver, no designer coat, no lazy smile. She waited until the last girl had been picked up, then stepped out from beneath the awning. "You knew," she said. "Knew what? That all of this would happen?" "No. I knew only that taking something dishonestly does not make it yours." Her eyes filled, but she held the tears back. "He stopped answering me the moment my family pulled the money. Then you have your answer about what he loved." She looked toward the classroom windows, where strips of indigo fabric hung drying in rows. "I thought you were weak because you walked away. Walking away was the strongest thing I did that night. You can still do it too." She left without apologizing. I did not need one. Watching her finally understand the room she had entered was enough. 3 months after that night, Daehyun showed up at the gate of the estate. I was in the garden. Harmony was beside me, teaching me how to identify 3 kinds of medicinal root from the same family of plant, and complaining about my grip on the spade. The security guard at the gate called up to the house. Harmony took the call on the garden phone, listened for 10 seconds, said something sharp in Korean that I did not catch all the words of, and hung up. "He is at the gate," she said. "Do you want to see him? I thought about it. I thought about my mama, who used to say, 'Baby, you can close a door, but you owe the truth the courtesy of looking at it on the way out.'" "Yes," I said. "Bring him to the garden, just to the gate of the garden. Not into the garden itself." Harmony nodded. 5 minutes later, Daehyun walked up to the wrought iron arch that separated the garden from the rest of the grounds. He was wearing a coat that did not fit him as well as it used to. He had lost weight. His face had a tightness in it that had not been there 3 months ago. He looked at me. He looked at Hermione, who was standing at my left shoulder with both hands folded in front of her like a tiny, well-dressed bodyguard. "Imani! Daehyun! Can we talk alone?" "No." He took a breath. "I came to apologize." "Okay. I lost everything, Imani. Hyojin is gone. The partnerships are gone. People I have known for 15 years will not return my calls. My grandmother died. I have spent these 3 months trying to understand how it all came apart so fast, and I keep coming back to the same night. I keep coming back to that room at the Capella. I keep coming back to his voice broke. I keep coming back to your face when you walked in." I did not say anything. "You were the best thing I ever had," he said. "I knew it then. I knew it the whole time. I could not square it with what I thought my life was supposed to look like. My family, my world, the pictures I had in my head. I chose the pictures. I chose them over you. And the pictures all fell down. Daehyun." I kept my voice even. "I'm sorry your grandmother passed. I prayed for her. I mean that. Thank you." "I'm not sorry about anything else," he flinched. "You let a woman cook for your family for 2 years, I said. You let her bow to your grandmother. You let her sit at your mother's table and learn her recipes. And the whole time, you knew you did not respect her enough to choose her. That is not a mistake, Daehyun. That is a character. And the character is what the world responded to. Not me. Not your partners. Not the Yoon family. You. You did this. You earned every door that closed. Imani, I do not have any more words for you. I wish you peace. I wish you the kind of growth that only comes after a fall. I will not be a part of it. Goodbye." I turned my back. I walked deeper into the garden with Harmony at my side, and I did not look back even when I heard the gate open and close. Harmony reached up and patted my arm with her small, soft hand. "That was perfect," she said. "That was just exactly perfect. I am going to tell your mother. I am going to call her tonight. We have her number now." "Did I tell you we have her number?" "You did, Harmony. She is very funny on the phone. She told me last week that I am, what was the word? A whole vibe. I do not know what this means. Is it good?" "It's very good, Harmony." "Good. I will tell her she is also a whole vibe." There was one piece of this story I did not know until 8 months after I walked into the rain outside the Capella Hotel. I learned it on a Saturday afternoon in late spring, sitting on the front porch of Hermione's main house with a cup of barley tea and a quilt across my knees, when she came out and sat down next to me and patted my leg 3 times, which is what she did when she was about to tell me something that mattered. "Sweetheart," she said, "I have a thing I should have told you a long time ago. I did not tell you because I did not want you to feel what is the word managed. I wanted you to come to this house because you wanted to, not because somebody put you in a chair." I set my tea down. "Hermione! What?" She looked out at the garden for a long moment. "The night I fell at the hospital gala," she said, "I was not falling because I am old. I was falling because I had just been told that my doctor had found a small thing in my lung that we needed to watch. I came out of the building to call Jaehyun. I was crying. I was not paying attention. I tripped on the step." She paused. "You came over to me. You did not know who I was. You did not know I had any money. You did not see my coat or my watch or my car. You saw a small Korean grandmother sitting on the wet pavement, and you sat down beside me in your nice dress, and you held my hand for 45 minutes until my grandson came. You did not look at your phone once. You said, 'Do you remember what you said?' I said, 'Somebody's grandbaby loves you, and you can't fall in front of God like this.' Yes." Her eyes were wet. "Yes, that sentence." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I went home that night and I told Jaehyun, 'Find this girl, whoever she is. I do not care where she is or what she does. I want to know her. I want her in this house. Because anyone who treats a stranger like that, in this world, is the most rare kind of person there is.' He looked for 6 months. 6 months. He had people on 3 continents looking. We could not find you. You were not on social media. You did not give your name to anybody at that gala. You disappeared like a kindness in a story. And then she smiled, and then a foolish man cheated on you in the wrong hotel. And one of my grandson's security cameras saw you walk out of that lobby, and within 20 minutes, Jaehyun was in the car." I did not know what to say. "Sweetheart," she turned to me. "I want to tell you the rest, but I do not want it to feel like a trap. So I will say it plainly. My grandson has been fascinated by you since the night you sat on the pavement with me. He had never met you. He had heard one story about you from his grandmother, and it stayed with him in a way I had never seen before. Love came later, after he met you and watched who you were when nobody was asking you to perform. He never said it. He never told me. But I am old. I see things he does not know I see. He has been quietly running his entire company while waiting for you to walk into a room where he could be useful to you. 8 months. That is what he was doing. I sat with that for a long time. I thought about the night in the rain, the blanket already folded in the back seat, the note slipped under my door, the way he had not pushed, the way he had said, "That is exactly the plan," when I had set my one condition. The way he had sat across the breakfast table and asked permission before he spoke to me about Daehyun. The way he had not, in 8 months, said one inappropriate thing. The way he had asked his grandmother to teach me her garden. Hermione. Yes, sweetheart. That is the most ridiculous, romantic, completely insane thing I have ever heard in my entire life. I know. She beamed. I have been keeping it for months. It was killing me. Killing me. He has not said a word. He will not say a word until you tell him you are ready. He told me this. He said, "Hermione, she just came out of something hard. I will not be one more man asking her for something. If she comes to me, she comes to me. If she does not, I will be honored to have been useful for a season." That is what he said. To me. Out loud. With his own mouth, I started to cry. This time I did not try to stop. Hermione let me cry. She held my hand and she did not say anything. When I was finished, she handed me a small silk handkerchief from her sleeve. She always had one in her sleeve. I never figured out where she kept the supply, and she said, "Take your time, my Memphis daughter. Take all the time you need. He is not going anywhere. None of us are." I took 6 more months. I worked. I finished my fellowship. I shipped my thesis on traditional Korean indigo dyeing techniques to my advisor, and she cried on the phone. I started teaching a Saturday workshop for young Korean and immigrant girls at a community center in a neighborhood Imani had introduced me to textile arts, fabric, color, identity. I called my mama every Sunday. I called Auntie Pearl every Wednesday. I let myself sit on porches and drink tea and not be in a hurry to figure out the next thing. Sun Jaehyun and I had dinner once a week. He never pushed. He listened more than he talked. He asked about my work. He told me about Hando, about the AI logistics arm they were building, about the foundation he ran that nobody knew about because he insisted it never be in his name. He told me about his parents, who had died in a car accident when he was 19, and how Hermione had raised him from that day forward. He told me he had not dated since he was 23 because every woman he met wanted the company more than the man. He told me he had not wanted to tell me any of this until he was sure I was choosing him without the noise of what had happened with Daehyun still in my ear. In the 7th month, on a Thursday evening, after a quiet dinner at a small restaurant in the old quarter where the owner had known Hermione since the 70s, Sun Jaehyun walked me back to the car and stopped on the sidewalk and turned to me. Imani, yes, I have a question I would like to ask you. Not tonight. I want to ask it in front of your mother. I would like to fly to Memphis next month, with my grandmother. If you would allow it. I looked at him. I thought about that night in the rain, about the dinner I had cooked that nobody came home to, about the money on the marble floor, about the elevator going down, about all of it. And I thought about how every step from that night to this sidewalk had been, in some quiet way, a glow-up I did not even know I was inside. I had walked into that hotel suite, a girl who was being chosen second. I was walking down this sidewalk, a woman who could finally be chosen first and who knew how to choose herself, regardless. Yes, I said. You can come to Memphis. He nodded once. He did not reach for my hand. He did not lean in. He just smiled, quiet, the way the sun comes up. Thank you, he said. We walked to the car. I'm going to tell you the moral of this story plain, because my mama did not raise me to bury the point under a pile of pretty words. The Korean Mafia boss cheated on me. He humiliated me in a hotel suite in front of a woman who thought she was winning. He threw money at me like I was a debt. He told me I was too American, too loud, too proud, and that I did not fit his world. He was right about one thing. I did not fit his world. His world was too small for me. The twist was simple. The woman who tried to replace me lost the life she had performed, and the man who chose her lost the empire he thought he was protecting. The stranger who stopped in the rain was not only a billionaire CEO, but a patient man who valued who I already was and never asked me to shrink. She walked away with everything. I walked away with everything. Because everything was never the apartment in Gangnam. Everything was never the table I set for two. Everything was never the recipes I memorized for a family that was not going to claim me. Everything was the woman I was when I walked into that hotel suite. Everything was the way I bent down on a wet sidewalk for an old woman I did not know, with no camera watching, with no reward expected. Everything was the mama in Memphis whose voice lived in my chest and told me, "Baby, cry on the clock. When the clock's up, you stand up and you move." That is the comeback. Not revenge. Character. The world, for all its noise and hotel suites and untouched dinners, eventually bends toward people who keep their character intact when it costs them. Karma is not a clever woman with a knife. Karma is just a slow, patient mathematician. She adds up everything, every choice, every kindness, every betrayal. And eventually she hands you the bill. I got my receipt. So did he. So did she. Do it for the woman still waiting for someone who is not coming home. She needs to know her story does not end in that room. To my Memphis mama, who taught me everything. To Hermione's son, who fed me back to life. To every woman walking out of a building that did not deserve her keep walking. The car is coming.